My name is Garrett. I am the Chief Financial Officer of Grubs. It is a local startup here in town, and I'm also a very big tech enthusiast and friend of Fresno GDG. This is actually my very first time speaking at Devfest. I've given similar talks at other events, but let's go to the main point why we are all here. We're going to learn about Raspberry Pi and some of the things you can do with it and how great these things are. Now, personally, from me, this was sort of my gateway drug from software into hardware. I started about 3-4 years ago learning how to do this, and now I've moved on to the heavier stuff. FPGAs, hardware description language, actual like chip design, more than just working with the single board system like this. And what is a single board system? It's exactly what it sounds like. This is an entire general purpose computer put on a single circuit board. Costs about $30, and you can do pretty much whatever you'd want with one of these. This specific one, I actually hadn't done anything with. This is really the very first time we'll be looking at it, but I had another one at my house that I was running a server off of for a while. It had IRC and it had cloud storage, so my friends and I could all talk to each other and store files on it. It was decommissioned and donated to Root Access a few months ago after giving a similar talk there about what you could do. Some of the things that you can do with this, like I said, like I did servers, one thing, can actually run a very small, cheap, low-cost one, but don't expect to get a whole lot of users. These things will get overpowered pretty quickly if you have a lot of connections going to it. It's one thing my friends and I learned, and that's actually why it got decommissioned. It got used too much. But other things that I've seen this used for, other projects. There's my keyboard. I hate to be this person, but can you also find me a mouse? I just realized I needed one. Wait, you have one? Yeah. Bring it up here. I need it. Sorry for the slow start. Things like this do happen. This is really nice. I gotta get one like this. This is $10 Now, did a few tests earlier to see if this actually still turned on. Luckily it does. So, let's get a much better look at things. This might take a little while to boot up. I can't read that. Okay, it does work. Cool. Now, one idea I actually had that I was going to do for this talk was I was going to show what a very small, very simple kernel for an operating system would look like running off of these. I'd actually written one in C and in assembly language and had gotten the bootloader program and everything else off of the internet, and it would have done the same thing. It would have gotten to here, except it would have just said like hello world. It would have been just real simple. Nothing like the full-blown operating system that's currently running. Didn't take this long to load last time. I don't know what's going on. Right as I said it.
If you need the thing to go faster, just click that button, I think.
Hit
the
what?
DPI? Yeah, on the mouse.
Oh. No, now the problem is just I have really bad eyesight, so everything's really hard to read. But as you can see, it boots up to graphic operating system, graphic interface, just like a regular computer would. And it has
The yellow screen has all the Yeah, it's on the professor.
I still can't read it. I know it's up there, but I still can't read it because my eyesight is still really bad. But it comes with a few just very simple like starter programs that just come with the Raspbian operating system. And what Raspbian is it's from Debian, from Linux. It's a much smaller variant of that that's designed to run on the ARM CPU. ARM is what Raspberry Pi and also a lot of phones run on. It uses a different architecture, different instruction set than x86, which is what a lot of computers, like desktops, servers, stuff like that use. A lot more stuff's actually moving to ARM because it's more energy efficient and you can actually do really similar stuff to x86 with it. I wish I had my glasses right now. I don't know, they all look the same. Well, okay, somebody help me out. What's the top one?
Trash.
Okay, what's the second one? What's the third one? What's the last one?
Wiki. Love Wiki. Yeah, love our Pi Wiki. Yeah.
Okay, right now I'm really upset because they don't have the terminal up here.
It's in the top.
It's at the top?
Yeah.
Or even on the top.
Higher.
Well,
Yeah.
This is all right. This is how we do it. We all learn by following along. And because it's Linux, there's going to be a lot of terminal stuff, a lot of command line. One thing I'm going to do that's very important. If I mess up with any typos, please tell me. Other thing, I have dyslexia. I mess up a lot typing stuff, so don't be afraid to speak up if I mess up. I'm just going to do some commands to get everything up to date on here. Well, it's doing something. If it comes up with a yes/no prompt, let me know.
Is it on the internet?
It's not, and I just realized that. Luckily, this thing comes with built-in Wi-Fi. Comes in with a built-in Wi-Fi transceiver, so you can connect to wireless networks. It also has Ethernet, so you can connect to wired networks. I don't know if there is one, and if there's a cable for it, I don't care, because we're going to see if the wireless works down here. If I can find out where the settings are, because
All the way
on
on the right?
the right,
Yeah, on the right.
over here,
Up, right one more. That one there.
okay.
Ooh, okay, sorry.
Now help me find the network, because I can't read any of those.
What's events? There you go.
Which one?
Down, to device events.
All right.
Key password is all caps.
Let's hope it works.
Right there. Over one more.
Oh.
To the right there. You go.
No, we already put this in, but. Okay, now who wants to help me find out if we're connected to the internet?
Yeah, just ping Google on the terminal.
Exactly.
So,
How do I get to terminal again, though? Because I can't see where it is.
Press up, top.
Do you,
left, one
Left.
more.
What?
There.
Yeah.
You're tapped up.
Thanks. Just gonna full screen this. Okay.
Back to the hallway. Back more. There you go.
You did.
Did it say anything?
It didn't. Unknown host, yeah. So it's not going to sleep with it.
If you want, you can do the presenting over here, and I can just like do that part, the typing and clicking stuff that you tell me to do.
I could do that, but then I'd have to move.
You want to borrow my glasses?
All right, yeah, if one of you would like to donate your glasses for the rest of this talk to try and help me out.
How blind are you? I look -3.
Oh, that sounds perfect. That could probably work.
See if these work real quick.
Oh man, I thought my vision was bad. These work perfect.
Are you for real?
These work great.
Do they actually know?
Yeah, I'm serious. These work great.
So the other screen shows though.
Yeah, you should still switch to that screen because it has the whole full screen.
Hey, now I can read it, so it's not a problem. Problem with this one is it cuts everything off, which is why I had to keep asking, what's it say?
No, because I'm on 2. Yeah, so it's got to be.
I'm going to try again with the connection. Because this does not seem to be working. And that's fine.
Why didn't it connect? I thought it was full bitwise. Yeah, the thing is just bitwise. I didn't connect to it. It said out there. Is that available?
There's two of them that both say something about bitwise.
It's bitwise.
Just stay bitwise.
It should be. Yeah, it's not on there for some reason. Yeah.
Do you have an Ethernet
Huh.
cable? Do you want an Ethernet cable?
I don't have an Ethernet cable. Okay, who said something about a hotspot? Who said that?
I have hotspot. Super G?
All right. You are a good person. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
Bottom.
Okay, so the password is pass, WRD, 100.
All right. All right, it's connecting. It's making sure everything works. Cool. Yeah, now let's make sure it actually works. Did I spell everything right? Cool.
Yes.
All right.
If you hit Control and then hit the scroll wheel up, does it increase the size of your terminal?
I've actually never tried that, but we're about to find out. No, it doesn't seem to be doing anything.
This is a Pi you're on?
Yep.
What version?
I don't know. That's why I upgraded it. This one's actually a couple of years old, and it came with its own micro SD that had Raspbian, which is also a few years old, so as you can see, in need of updating.
Right mouse click on the terminal bar, or the bar there. Go to Preferences.
Oh, it's grayed out. Or is it? No.
Just taking a second.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Let's make that bigger.
Oh, gosh. Perfect. That's
I want you all to look at it.
permission. Yeah.
Do sudo bang bang.
All right. Of Of course, this is actually the very first thing you should do once you get a Raspberry Pi and put Raspbian in it. Run the update commands, make sure everything works the way it's supposed to, and then you can actually start having fun. The reason you do this right away is so you don't have to think about it later when you're actually trying to work on your project. I actually learned this the hard way a few years ago giving a similar talk down at College of the Sequoias when I was showing the kids how to set up an IRC server using a Raspberry Pi, and the very first thing we had to do was updates. It took about an hour to do, so that was actually most of the time I would have spent talking and demonstrating was pretty much looking at this. Going back to what I said at the very beginning, though, since you can pretty much do whatever you want with one of these, what are some ideas you guys have that you'd like to share that we can look up? Vision tracking, you said? Okay. Here's something. So as you can see, you can easily take one of these and you can set it up. Vision tracking, motion tracking, object detection. Connect cameras to it. One of these ribbon connectors camera, the second one right here close to the HDMI, connected to the GPIO pins. You can also do that for like motor control. And that's actually related to a similar thing that I've seen that I actually do want to work on eventually, which is using a Raspberry Pi to create a computer-controlled facial recognition system using camera and motors that are connected to it, and using a machine learning program, it can detect people's faces and identify them and actually track their movements. It was something I wanted to work on and would have presented very much like the really small, simple operating system kernel I talked about at the very beginning, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get the parts for it.
What projects have you done with the Raspberry Pi?
Mostly server-related stuff.
Did you do like an Hello World program?
Yeah. Well, the very easiest way to do Hello World would just be through the command line. Yeah, that's the other thing. All Raspberry Pis, Raspbian comes with Python right away. The way this was designed was actually be very similar to like the Commodore 64 and a lot of the really early home computers where everything was all command line, everything was done with basic programming. You wanted to make something, you had to figure a lot of it out, which is actually kind of fun.
Is really loaded with Mathematica, or it just connects to Wolfram Alpha?
I think it just connects to Wolfram Alpha. I don't know if it comes with Mathematica or any of their software, but I know it's able to connect to their service. Please say nice things about me in the feedback. I'm trying to find the preferences so I can actually read this too.
It's probably under options.
Okay.
Go back up, two options. Figure out.
All right, perfect. Okay. Anything else anyone would like to see demonstrated?
How many processors does it have?
You mean like in terms of cores or?
Yeah. They do
Yeah. It's got 4 cores for the system on chip that it uses for the CPU part of it.
do cat proc CPU info in the shell. I'm curious.
If I can get back to cat proc, what now?
Cat /proc. Oh, space in between cat. And then /CPU info. Yeah, it's all one direct.
Let's see what this has to say.
It's got 4 processors and they're ARM version 3s.
Yep. The way this actually works when it boots up is it first loads things into the GPU before it transfers them to the CPU.
How much RAM does it have?
I think it actually has it printed on here how much RAM it has. It's one of these little chips. I don't remember which one, but it doesn't have a whole lot.
This is a Raspberry Pi 3, it has 1 GB RAM.
Raspberry Pi 3 model BV 1.2, so yes. Anything else?
Let's see Mathematica.
All right.
TensorFlow run on this?
Yeah, but not really well because this does not have a whole lot of computing power.
I think TensorFlow Lite runs well with the price.
There is, yeah, TensorFlow Lite that is actually specifically meant for the ARM architecture that you can run off of this. And that's actually what the program I was talking about for facial recognition and tracking uses. Why is everything so hard to read?
What'd you fire up? What did you start?
Wolfram Mathematica, seeing if it actually runs off of here, or if it connects to. It's just taking a while. It's just taking a while.
Anyone having a homework problem for school?
Don't worry, it's working. It just takes a while. It just takes its time.
Are we just playing some Mathematica?
That's what it looks like now. Yeah, well, this talk was meant to be an introduction to the Raspberry Pi, so part of that introduction is going to be showing all the stuff that comes, stock with the operating system. So yeah, we're going to be looking at Mathematica now, since we saw Python and we saw a terminal.
Can you grab something from Mathematica?
Once it loads.
If it does, right?
It depends on how long it takes. Now, just a nice little disclaimer, I have actually never done this before on the Raspberry Pi, so. This is as much learning for me as it is for all of you. I'm going to free up some space and memory in the processor by closing out of this. Oh.
Or you can just write help.
Is that where you write your formulas?
Just write help and see.
Yeah.
What's that?
Just write help and see what. You might have actually to enter shift enter at the same time. No, when you press to execute it, otherwise you menu.
Okay. There we go.
It's like,
It just prints out help.
Okay, let's see, I'll look at the syntax on this.
Then write 1 plus 1. 1 plus 1.
All right, one at a time. 1 plus, no. 1 plus 1, okay.
Equals.
2.
Yeah! Woo!
And yeah, if you ever need help with your homework. Anyway, I hope this has been a good introduction to some of the things you can do with the Raspberry Pi. Just a really, really basic introduction to some of the things that just sort of come stock with the operating system and with the computer, and you can. Yes, first. No, closer. First you, and then later. Yes.
So, like, what would we do if we wanted to build an emulator out of a Raspberry Pi?
Well, there's already things that exist out there. There's already like image files for things like emulators. There's stuff like the RetroPie for like a lot of the old video game cabinets, old consoles, things like that. And you, farther in the back, your question?
How well does Raspberry Pi interface with other hardware? Does it pop out 5 volts kind of like an Arduino does, or is it like 3.3? How does it get used to inverters or transformer?
Well, it depends on exactly what the load you're pulling for the other hardware is, because this does not take a whole lot of power. So a lot of stuff does have to be powered on its own, because this does not draw a whole lot. And if you do anything that is connected to it that is, passively powered, that draws power from the Raspberry Pi, it is going to mess with it because it's using less electricity. Now it's underpowered and it's going to start having problems. Or it could potentially have problems. So be careful connecting passively powered hardware to this. That's why when I was actually using one of these as a server, I had an external hard drive that was actually powered by its own connection and connected by USB to serial ATA to one of these ports. Because if I had just gotten a regular external hard drive, it probably would have messed this up by drawing too much power. Any other questions?
yeah,
Yes.
for like other applications like that are kind of outside of just like a
Uh-huh.
outside kind of like the Raspberry and the Linux area of like operations. Like, say you want to use it more for like, as a microcontroller. Could you be using like a free free OS, let's say, a free RTOS?
If you have the version that's compiled for ARM, yeah, you should be able to do it. And for doing this more like a microcontroller, yeah, there is things like bare metal, MicroPython. So you can actually just run the language on top of the hardware and just write all the programs that way. But the thing about bare metal is you really have to know what you're doing because it comes with no operating system, meaning there's no libraries, no dependencies, no additional files. So just be prepared if you're going to do that.
Can you talk more about like the types of sensors that you can be putting on these and
What kind of types of sensors?
any types that maybe you have experience with or types that you wanted to use?
Well, one of these ribbon connections is marked camera, so right away you can connect a camera to it. You also have the GPIO pins here where you can connect all types of other additional hardware to it that actually draws power from the Raspberry Pi and is able to communicate with it, send data connections back and forth that way. It has 2 ports for display, one for HDMI, which I'm using right now, and the other one's a ribbon connector similar to the camera. That's if you'd want to do like a touch screen, you hook it up to that one. It really depends exactly on what you're looking at in terms of sensors, what you want to connect to it and how you want to connect to it, because different things, different connections, different applications. It's really all about what you're thinking about.
And where might you get sensors?
Again, it depends on the kind of sensors, because
Where would be the first place you think of?
AliExpress, but that's just me.
Just expect to wait on that for like 6 to 8 weeks.
I don't really do that anymore, though, because now it's just way too expensive to buy stuff from China. That's how I used to get a lot of my parts, was I'd just buy it directly from the factory, but
What about like Amazon? Can you
Yeah.
put a bunch of sensors there?
yeah, you probably could. Any other questions? Because if not, I am probably going to end this early because I really can't think of a whole lot more else to talk about.
Last question, I guess.
Yes.
So when you're getting a Raspberry Pi,
Yeah.
is Raspberry installed automatically?
Yes and no. It depends on where you're buying it from. This one, or it might have been the other one, I don't remember because I had 2 that were identical and I don't remember which this came with. But sometimes they do sell them as kits where it comes with a micro SD card that has Raspbian pre-installed on it. It already has the system image put on, so you just put it in and you can start up. But other times you do have to do it yourself. You'd have to get your own micro SD card and actually put the image file for Raspbian on there and go through all that in order to get it set up and ready. So it really depends on what you're getting. Like, are you getting a full-on kit where everything just comes and you're ready to start, or are you getting it just like one piece at a time?
Is it only limited to Raspbian or can I like install any operating system?
You can install most operating systems that work with the ARM architecture. Raspbian is really just the best, though, because it's specifically designed for the Raspberry Pi and it's been optimized for it. But you can run other stuff, though. There are people who've run like Windows IoT Core on it. Doesn't work all that well, but they've done it. There are people who've done Android on Raspberry Pi, and just like Windows IoT Core, it works, but you shouldn't do it because it doesn't work all that great.
Is it suitable to run gaming applications on it?
Depends on what gaming applications, like how intense they are, what exactly they need in terms of system requirements. Because yeah, you can run games on this. Just don't expect to be running anything super intensive because this doesn't have a lot of memory, the CPU is not really big, and the GPU is also not really big. Don't let that get you down, though. Any more questions? If not, thank you very much for showing up, and hopefully all of my bumbling and tripping over myself did not put you off from getting one of these yourself and figuring out your own experiments and what projects you can do.